Conflict is defined as an expressed struggle between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interference from the other party in achieving their goals. The expressed struggle. A conflict can only exist when both parties are aware of a disagreement. So, one way or another, both parties must know that a problem exists before they're in a conflict. Perceived incompatible goals. All conflicts look as if it's one party's gain would be at another person's loss. Unfortunately, people often fail to see mutually satisfying solutions to their problems. As long as they perceive their goals to be mutually exclusive, a conflict exists. Perceived scarce resources. Conflicts also exist when people believe there isn't enough of something to go around. Now, the most obvious example of a scarce resource is money, and it's a cause of many conflicts. So if a worker asks for a raise in pay and the boss would rather keep the money or use it to expand the business, then the two parties are in a conflict. Time is another scarce commodity. People struggle to meet competing demands of school, work, family, and friends. So if there is only more hours in a day as a common refrain, and making time for the people in your life and for yourself is a constant source of conflict. Interdependence. However antagonistic they might feel, the parties in conflict are usually dependent on each other. The welfare and satisfaction of one depends on the actions of another. One of the first steps towards resolving a conflict is to take the attitude we're all in this together. Interference from the other party. No matter how much one's personal position may differ from another's, a full-fledged conflict won't occur until the participants act in ways that prevent one another from reaching their goals. Conflict is natural. Every relationship at any depth at all has conflict. College students who have kept diaries of their relationships report that they take part in about 7 arguments a week. Most argue with the other person before, and it's often about the same topic. Even though conflict is a part of a meaningful relationship, you could change the way you deal with it. Conflict can be beneficial. Because it is impossible to avoid conflicts, the challenge is to handle them when they do arise. Effective communication during conflict can actually keep good relationships strong. People who use constructive skills described in this chapter are more satisfied with their relationships and with the outcomes of their conflicts. One 9-year study revealed that unhappy couples argue in ways that have been cataloged in this book as destructive. They are more concerned about defending themselves than with being problem-oriented. They fail to listen carefully to each other, have little or no empathy for their partners, use evaluative you language, and ignore each other's nonverbal relational messages. Many satisfied couples think and communicate differently when they disagree. They view disagreements as healthy and recognize that conflicts need to be faced. Although they may argue vigorously, they use skills such as perception checking to find out what the other person is thinking and let each other know that they understand each other's side of the argument. They are more willing to admit their mistakes, which contributes not only to a harmonious relationship, but also to solving problems. Conflict styles. Avoiding. Lose-lose. Avoiding occurs when people non-assertively ignore or stay away from conflict. Avoidance can be physical, such as steering clear of a friend after an argument, or conversational, changing the topic, joking, or denying that the problem exists. It can be tempting to avoid conflict, but research suggests that this approach has its costs. Partners of self-silencers report more frustration and discomfort when dealing with the avoiding partner than with those who face conflict more constructively. In either case, avoiding often results in lose-lose outcomes in which no party gets what they want. Accommodating. Accommodating occurs when you allow others to have their way rather than asserting your own point of view. Competing. The flip side of accommodating is competing. This win-lose approach to conflict involves high concern for self, low concern for others. Often, competition seeks to resolve conflicts as my way. Power is the distinguishing characteristic in win-lose problem solving, because it is necessary to defeat an opponent to get what one wants. The dark side of competition is that it often breeds aggression. Sometimes aggression is obvious, but at other times it can be more subtle. Direct aggression occurs when a communicator expresses a criticism or demand that threatens the face of the other person whom it's directed. There are several types of direct aggression, such as character attacks, competence attacks, physical appearance attacks, maledictions, teasing, ridiculing, threats, swearing, and nonverbal emblems. Direct aggression can severely affect the target. Recipients can feel embarrassed, inadequate, humiliated, hopeless, desperate, or depressed. These results can lead to decreased effectiveness in personal relationships on the job and in families. Passive aggression occurs when a communicator expresses hostility in an obscure or manipulative way. Passive aggression can also be termed as crazy making. It occurs when people have feelings of resentment, anger, or rage that they are unable or unwilling to express directly. Instead of keeping these feelings to themselves, a crazy maker sends aggressive messages in subtle, indirect ways, thus maintaining the front of kindness. Passive aggression seldom has anything but harmful effects on a relationship. Compromising gives both people at least some of what they want, although both sacrifice part of their goals. People usually settle for a compromise when it seems that partial satisfaction is the best they can hope for. Compromisers actually negotiate a solution that gives them some of what they want, but also leaves everybody losing something. Collaborating seeks win-win solutions to conflict. Collaborators show a high degree of concern for both themselves and others. Rather than trying to solve problems my way or your way, their focus is on our way. In the best case, collaborating can lead to win-win outcomes where everybody gets what they want. The goal of collaboration is to find a solution that satisfies the needs of everyone involved. Not only do partners avoid trying to win at the other person's expense, but they also believe that by working together, it is possible to find a solution that goes beyond a mere compromise and allows all parties to reach their goals. When looking at this graphic, we will see that on the y-axis is concern for self, the x-axis is concern for others, and we start to see that high concern for self, high concern for others is the collaborating. High concern for self, low concern for other, that would be competing. Low concern for self, low concern for others is avoiding, lose-lose. We also have low concern for self, high concern for others, and there's your lose-win. And somewhere in the middle of all this is compromising, partial lose-lose, halfway. So which conflict styles do we want to use? Well, here are a few things that we need to consider. The relationship, the situation, the other person, and your goals. When someone else clearly has more power than you, accommodating may be the best approach. So if the boss tells you to fill that order now, it may be smart to do so without any comment. A more assertive response, I'm still tied up with the job that you gave me yesterday, might be reasonable, but it could also cost you your job. The situation. Different situations call for different conflict styles. After haggling over a price of a car for hours, it might be best to compromise by simply splitting the difference. In other cases, though, it might be a matter of principle for you to stick to your guns and attempt to get what you believe is right. The other person. Win-win is a fine ideal, but sometimes the other person isn't willing or able to collaborate. You probably know communicators who are so competitive, winning on even minor issues ahead of the well-being of your relationship. In such cases, your efforts to collaborate may have a low chance of success. Your goals. Sometimes your overriding concern may be to calm down an enraged or upset person. Based on the context, you'll be able to make the appropriate decision as to which style to use. Relational conflict style is a pattern of managing disagreements. The mutual influence that parties have on each other is so powerful that it can overcome the disposition to handle conflicts in the manner that comes most easily to one or another. Complementary conflict styles. The partners use different but mutually reinforcing behaviors. In symmetrical conflict styles, both parties use the same behaviors. And in parallel conflict styles, both partners shift between complementary and symmetrical patterns from one issue to another. Research shows that a complementary fight-flight style is common in many unhappy marriages. One partner, mostly commonly the wife, addresses the conflict directly, whereas the other, usually the husband, withdraws. I tend to withdraw because she's so critical, a husband might say. The wife wouldn't organize the sequence the same way, however. I criticize because he withdraws, would be her perception. Destructive conflict patterns. Some conflict styles are so destructive that they are almost guaranteed to wreak havoc on relationships. These toxic forms of communication includes what John Gottman calls the four horsemen of the apocalypse. John Gottman has gathered decades of data about newlywed couples and their communication patterns. By observing their interaction, he has been able to predict with more than 90% accuracy whether the newlyweds will end up divorcing. Here are the 4 destructive signs he looks for. Criticism. These are attacks on a person's character. 2. Defensiveness. Defensiveness is a reaction that aims to protect one's presenting self by denying responsibility. Things like, "You're crazy, I never do that," and counterattacking, "You're worse about that than I am." Although some self-protection is understandable, problems arise when a person refuses to listen or even to acknowledge the other person's concerns. Contempt. A contemptuous comment belittles and demeans. It could take the form of name-calling, such as, "You're a real jerk." Sarcastic barbs, "Oh, that was brilliant." Contempt can also be communicated non-verbally through dramatic eye rolls or disgusted sighs. The 4th destructive conflict pattern is stonewalling. Stonewalling occurs when one person in a relationship withdraws from the interactions, shutting down dialogue and any chance of resolving the problem in a mutually satisfactory way. It sends a disconfirming, "You don't matter" message to the other person. When people have been in a relationship for some time, their communication often develops into conflict rituals, which is usually unacknowledged but very real patterns of interlocking behavior. For example, a couple fights, one partner leaves, the other accepts the blame for the problem and begs for forgiveness, the first partner returns, and a happy reunion takes place. Soon they fight again. Roommates have a blowout over housekeeping responsibilities. One roommate gives the other person the silent treatment for several days, then begins picking up around the house without admitting being wrong. Now, rituals can cause problems, though when they become the only way relational partners handle their conflicts.